Okay, so today we're going to dive into what might just be the greatest survival story of all time. Seriously, it's about a ship called the Endurance, and it's a journey that pushed its crew to the absolute edge of what's humanly possible.
All right, so picture this. It's 1914. You've got this guy, Sir Ernest Shackleton. He's a seasoned polar explorer, and he's putting together this expedition. But this isn't just any expedition. It's called the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. And the goal? Well, it's huge, almost unbelievable. He wants to be the first person ever to walk across the entire Antarctic continent.
So you think this is going to be a story of glorious success, right? Wrong. By pretty much every measure you can think of, the whole thing was a total failure, a complete disaster. They never even stepped foot on the continent. The main goal? It was dead in the water before it even started. But, and this is the incredible part, this is what makes the story legendary. That complete failure somehow turned into one of the greatest triumphs of leadership and human spirit we've ever seen. So how does that happen? How does total failure become an epic win? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. Okay, so let's really wrap our heads around how ambitious this was. Shackleton wasn't just popping down to Antarctica. No, he was planning to march over 1,800 miles across the coldest, the highest, the driest continent on our planet. This was like the final frontier, the last great prize of what they called the heroic age of exploration.
And this right here, this number is what it all comes down to. 28. That's how many men were on this journey. A whole crew of sailors, scientists, and other experts, all on a ship called the Endurance. And look, these weren't superheroes. They were regular guys, chosen because they were tough, because they had grit, and because they could work together under pressure. And they were about to face more pressure than anyone could ever imagine.
And that pressure, well, it was about to become a matter of life and death. So let me ask you, what do you do when everything, everything, goes wrong? You're stranded at the end of the earth, thousands of miles from help, no radio. No one knows where you are. What's the plan?
See, the disaster wasn't a sudden explosion. It was this slow, agonizing crush. It starts in January 1915. The Endurance gets stuck, just frozen solid in the sea ice. And for the next 10 months, they just sit there, watching as the ice slowly, relentlessly squeezes their ship. You can hear the timbers groaning and cracking, until finally the hull just splinters. And in November, they watch as their ship, their home, their only connection to the outside world, sinks beneath the ice. Gone.
And right there, in that moment, Shackleton makes a choice that changes everything. The grand mission, crossing Antarctica, it's over. He throws it out the window. There's a new mission now, one that's way more important. Get every single man home alive. That's it. That's the only goal now.
And just try to comprehend this number. 1,200 miles. That's how far away the nearest people were, at these tiny whaling stations. They are completely, utterly alone. Just a bunch of guys on a chunk of floating ice in the most dangerous sea in the world.
So, faced with this totally impossible situation, what does Shackleton do? He comes up with a plan. A desperate, almost crazy plan, but a plan nonetheless. Step 1, they'll live on the ice itself, this giant drifting ice floe. Step 2, when that ice eventually breaks up, they'll pile into 3 tiny lifeboats and try to row through a literal maze of icebergs. And the goal? A tiny, godforsaken rock called Elephant Island. And after this just brutal 7-day trip at sea, they actually make it. Now stop and think about this for a second. For 497 days, nearly a year and a half, not a single one of these men had stood on solid ground.
So you're thinking, phew, they made it to land. Story's over, right? Not even close. See, Elephant Island was just a barren rock in the middle of nowhere. No one was coming for them. There were no shipping lanes. To just wait there would have been a death sentence. The real chance for survival, that was still 800 miles away, across the most dangerous ocean on the planet. And this is where the story goes from incredible to downright legendary. This is the final ordeal. Shackleton picks 5 of his best men, and they decide to attempt the impossible. It's a 2-part mission. First, they have to sail 800 miles in a tiny 22-foot lifeboat. And then, if they survive that, they have to cross an unmapped, glacier-covered mountain range on foot. This boat journey, it was just insane. For 16 days, just 6 guys in a tiny open boat, getting hammered by hurricane-force winds and waves that were literally as big as buildings. They were constantly soaked in freezing water. And how did they know where they were going? With a sextant, which they could only use for a few seconds here and there when the sun peeked through the clouds. It's just unbelievable.
Somehow, against all odds, they land on the island. And after marching for 36 hours straight with no rest across glaciers no one had ever crossed before, a completely exhausted Shackleton stumbles into a whaling station. And what are his first words? Not "I'm saved" or "get me food." No, his first words are, "How soon can we rescue my men?" That's all he cared about. His focus was just unshakable.
Meanwhile, back on Elephant Island, the other 22 men are just waiting for 128 days. That's over 4 months. They're living under 2 overturned lifeboats, just huddled together for warmth as the Antarctic winter sets in. You can only imagine their hope just fading a little more each day.
And then it happens. August 30th, 1916. After trying and failing 3 times to get back, Shackleton finally gets a ship through the ice. He gets to the shore and he starts counting heads. And every single man is there. Every one of them is alive. After nearly 2 years of this unbelievable hell, the number of men they lost was 0. Not a single one.
And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? The original mission had one goal: cross Antarctica. And in that, they failed. Completely. But what they actually achieved was something so much bigger, so much more important. They saved 28 lives when all hope was lost.
So in the end, the story of the Endurance isn't remembered as a failure to get from point A to point B. It's become this timeless story about what real leadership looks like. It's about redefining what success even means. It's not about planting a flag. It's about courage, about taking responsibility, and about an absolute refusal to give up on your people. And that kind of leaves us with a pretty big question, right? Something to really think about. This whole story makes you wonder, in our own lives, whether it's at work or just with our personal goals, when is the right time to abandon the plan? When is letting go of the original goal the only way you can truly succeed?